when when the first slave ships drifted away from the African continent, the official story was that they were taking bodies across the Atlantic to the New World. That was the official doctrine, the official myth. But there were other stories that were at work, that were overwhelming that official doctrine, that official story. You see, when the ships departed, I believe they caused ripples in space-time, in decolonial space-time, and those ripples traveled far and wide into the past, into the present, into the future, touching bodies of all kinds. So that in a sense, it wasn't that they were traveling to a new world. It was that new worlds were already erupting in the wake of colonial departure. And that's not the only shocking thing about those moments. This is my welcome, my final welcome, so to say. This course has been premised on the idea that we are all and have always been, in a sense, in slave ships. We're all caught in its dynamics, and we never disembarked. And that might seem like a gloomy tale to tell. But another shocking idea that has been at the heart of this expedition is the story of what I would call a biomy. That somewhere aboard this slave ship, which modern civilization is indebted to, we are literally the children of those figures that traversed the oceans. Somewhere aboard this slave ship was an explosion, not of gunpowder or firecrackers, not that kind of explosion, but an ontological explosion, a cosmic explosion, mostly invisible. In some parts in Brazil, they remember that explosion by weaving a rag doll with black material, which they call a biomy. Where I come from, in my part of Africa, we remember that explosion on the slave ship by telling the stories that our elders tell us, that those bodies also had tricksters traveling with them, that they were not as incarcerated as we think, that there was an embarrassing excessiveness that went with them. So that the official doctrine that said that they were being carried away from home left out the glorious part, that they were also carried away with home. And that has been the invitation of this course, to touch the cracks that have emerged as a result of that explosion of hope, even within the belly of hopelessness. When I wrote my book, I wrote it as a series of letters to my daughter, Alethea. I imagined at the end is my favorite part, for more reasons than one. It meant that I'd finished, but also it contains I think the most precious words that I want to say, or I wanted to say, and I still want to say to my daughter, who's now 7 years old. I imagined at the end of the book or these letters to my daughter, that she would have my letters. She'll be older when she gets to read it. And she'll be somewhere by the ocean, and she would hold my letters in her hand and she would be reading them and she would come to the end. And my wife and I, her mother and I, would be near her, just by her side. But it would be as ashes. We would be dead. And she would hold us in her bowl as her final ritual, and we will be close to her as she undergoes this final ritual of reading these letters that I wrote to her many, many years ago. I felt in this ritual of endings, I should share some of those words with you. It only feels appropriate. Home is your mother, in whose entrails and dust I will be entangled, long after memories are congealed into new stars. Alethea, where you're going, we cannot come. So take these letters, pack them into a neat heap, and burn them in a fire. Put the ashes in with us where we now lie, in the single pot you've kept by your side throughout these readings. Release us into the ocean wind. Let her carry us away, so we will always be close to you. Run through the fields, my darling. Run to your new kin, to your new fathers and mothers, to the ones who hold you close as our dust churns a new night. Gather your children close, if you have any, and tell them of us, your mother and me, especially your mother. Tell them of your mother. And when you dance through the wisps of Thursday's bright morning, know you will not dance alone, for we will haunt you. We are cool like that. And that's the end of the book. We will haunt you. It is my prayer that as we close, that this closing is not a final cut in the fabric of things, that it's an inflection, that we will learn that we're not alone. And that's the invitation, the abiding invitation of this course, long after it's done. I hope it haunts you as well. And I hope it helps you see that you're not as alone as you think. I hope it helps you listen through the cracks. And if you listen just well enough, linger in those places of trouble just long enough, longer than is necessary, longer than is usual, longer than familiar habits might allow you to do, then you might hear music.